It is my privilege to introduce Beverly Poitier Henderson, Anika Poitier, and Sidney Poitier Heartsong, 3 of Sidney's 6 daughters. We are so honored to have you join us today for this momentous occasion.
So, hey, we all know your father publicly, but we'd love to hear more about what it was actually like to grow up with him.
Daddy's always been concerned with the family of man. And he talks about that a lot in his books. And I think that this is one step towards taking care of the family of man, educating and bringing so many different people, so many different students together to do more than just learn how to use a camera and learn how to act.
He always told us when we were younger to be the captain of our own ship, be the captain of your own ship. So what that meant was you have to know where your moral compass lies and where your true north lies, and you have to set your sights on that and not veer from that course despite whatever outside forces are trying to push you off of it.
Given, the situation in which he came to this country, I think that, being the captain of your own ship, not letting anyone define you, telling the truth, your word is your honor, all of those things were things that he carried with him from the Bahamas. I know that, your word is your honor came from his mother. And it's something that I think that being here by himself, he held on to those things and brought them through, kind of what got him through difficult situations. And I think that it was really important for him to sort of pass that on to his children.
Daddy always says that what you do in life reflects on your family. So you need to keep that in mind when you're, whatever your choices are, whatever you do, because you're doing it in the name of your family. I know that when he would see his name in quote unquote lights, what he saw was his father's name, not his.
He was full of wisdom for us at all times. He was philosophical in a way that other fathers were not. He was just present in ways that you don't normally see, and for that we're so appreciative. But also, of course, it comes with hundreds of people coming up to you in an airport when you're trying to get to New York, or, there was that aspect, which was normal to us because it's how we grew up. But yes, can be a little bit strange when you sometimes we kind of, when we were little, we would just look at him and be like, what's the big deal? Like, he's just, that's dad, and I think we understood it more as we grew older. I also think Beverly's experience was a little bit different than mine and Anika's because when Beverly was a child, he was in the heyday of his career when he was his most famous. When Anika and I were children, he was largely retired. So he was home a lot with us and was more dad than he was actor in our eyes. But he is a wonderful, loving, beautiful, and brilliant dad.
Ditto, I would have to say. It was a bit different for us. I remember going to Disneyland and being thoroughly annoyed because all these people kept coming up to him and wanting autographs and, and oh my God, and this is Sidney Poitier. And we wanted to get on the rides. I mean, that's why we were there, right? So what we did was people would come up to us because we were behind him and say, is that Sidney Poitier? And we'd say, no. People say it all the time. He just looks like him. Well, Daddy overheard that and was very unhappy with us. He told us it was disrespectful and these were the people who put us and him where he was, so we had to respect that. So we never did it again.
And schoolwork had to be done. School was most important. If we were ever struggling with something, he would help, or if he couldn't help because, he didn't have that kind of formal education. So like 5th grade math was like foreign to him. He was so worldly and educated about so many things, but trying to divide or do a fraction was not his strong suit. So he was always quick to bring somebody in, if it was a tutor or somebody to help us, so that we could get the most out of our education, so that we could have the greatest chances in the world. I think he sort of thought that was that was the way for us. And he really wanted all of us to go into something a little more academic. You know, I don't think acting was his first choice for me, but he was really hopeful he'd end up with like a scientist, a teacher, an engineer, but that didn't happen. So that would be my 2 cents for how we grew up.
It's, you know, it's the old adage, if you tell a kid not to do something, that's exactly what they're going to do.
I sat down and I said, so Dad, I'm going to be a drama major. And I kind of just waited, and he was like, sorry? And I said, I think I'm going to be a drama major. And he just sort of, in his very intimidating, solemn presence, kind of got very quiet. He said, okay, all right, well, what is it you need from me? And I said, I have this audition I have to prepare, and would you be willing to help me with it? And he said, yes, of course I will help you with it. So he helped me with my audition. I got into the school, and then he still would try to talk me out of it a lot. He still would sort of say, but I know you're doing this, but what about those neuroscience classes you were taking? That sounds really interesting. You know, he was always sort of trying to push me in another direction, and I never would let him come and see my performances. I was too nervous. And finally, my junior year, I was like, okay, I have to let him come. And so I didn't let him come to the performance. I let him come to the dress rehearsal. It was him and Harry Belafonte. I'm sorry to all of my fellow classmates who probably all pooped their pants on that night when they walked in to watch the dress rehearsal. But I let him watch the dress rehearsal because I was too nervous to let him come to the performance itself. And then after that, he's like, yeah, you're an actor. And he got on board, and he was fully supportive after that.
So I remember going in to his study, and he was reading, and I went around to see, you know, what he was reading, and he was reading one of my school books, trying to understand and know what we were learning so that he could then help us with what we were learning. And I just thought that kind of just like sums him up in a nutshell. Like he loves learning. He loves the pursuit of knowledge. And I think that's something he instilled in all of us, really. And that's my story.
Yes, education was a big deal. But the other thing was there were certain programs we were not allowed to watch. Anything that denigrated Black people, anything that gave the wrong impression of who we are. And I can remember there was some show on, it was two birds, and we were watching it, and they turned it off, and there's no way that, you know, we could watch that. And he explained why, because it was a caricature of quote unquote Black people. So we got a lot of lessons in history from Daddy and my mother as well. But for us, history was happening all around us too, because it was in the 50s and 60s. So, you know, they talked a lot about what was going on and what was expected of us, and et cetera, et cetera.
First of all, diversity and inclusivity is something that is at the forefront of what my dad was trying to achieve. And I know that at the time, the thing that angered him the most was that he was the only one. He was the only one standing up there. He was the only one who won an Academy Award. He was, and he fought so that others could be included as well. He wanted to see his story and his likeness represented on screen. And he was also keenly aware of the fact that that wasn't going to fully happen in the way that it should happen unless there were people also behind the camera.
It's really important to have diversity in the stories that we tell, and they need to be told by the people who are living these stories. And I think that that is a huge problem in this industry. And, you know, the fact that there are so many stories, you know, about Black people, brown people, women that are not told by the people who have lived these stories and who are denied their perspective, I think is dangerous, really. And I think it's absolutely imperative that we open up these conversations and we open up, like schools, like exactly what you are doing, which will hopefully encourage people to come and learn and be able to tell their stories, and have a platform in which to share those stories as well, because I think that it's what the world needs desperately right now.
Film, this industry is so powerful. It shapes things that happen in our society. I think I credit Daddy with a lot because of his choices, and because people saw a Black man who was not a butler, who was not, a criminal, who was, someone that they could relate to. And I think it's so important that we expand on that. And I always tell my kids, I said, you look at movies and you look at commercials, and especially abroad, people think that's life. People think that's the real deal. And if you're not seeing yourself, or you're not seeing people who you want to emulate.
The fact that this is not just a film school, but this is a place of, like you said, diversity and inclusivity, that this is a place where kids are going to go to be creative and to learn, that is just a gift to him. And we're all very, very thrilled about it.
Our society has been moved forward by film and by television. And if you pay attention to movies and you pay attention to television and even commercials, you'll see a lot more interracial couples. You'll see a lot more gay couples. You'll see, a lot of everything else that wasn't, readily available back in the day. So it's a responsibility. It's not fun and games. You are shaping the world and changing the world with your work as a filmmaker.
I think it's a huge honor to have this film school named after my dad. I think he feels it's a huge honor. I think it marries the two things that have been most defining and most important to him in his life, which are education and the arts.
It's fitting that ASU is embracing his work ethic and embracing his commitment to truth and his commitment to the arts and his commitment to education. So, we're very happy. He's very happy. Now, if you could have a dual degree of arts and medicine, he'd be extremely happy.